Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Mission Snapshot. As always, we are so thankful that you have taken time out of your busy schedule to join us as we share stories from the mission field. Now, today is Thursday, and that means we have Veronica in the studio. And normally, she's talking about evening schools in India and the children and the programs. But today we have a special program because we're not in India today.
No, we are not.
Where are we?
So we're going to talk about Nepal.
Okay, Nepal. We have not talked about Nepal
We have not
on Mission Snapshot before.
We've not mentioned it before, and that's because it's a very tricky country to talk about in regards to mission work, and we have to be careful. But there's exciting things happening, and so we want to share what we can and just let people know what's going on in Nepal and what that country is like.
Right, and so today we're going to, as Veronica mentioned, try to give you as much information as possible, but for the safety of the missionaries there, we have to be a little circumspect. So please bear with us if we can't divulge all the details, but we'll share as much as we can.
Absolutely. So for today, I am going to give some history about Nepal because we haven't talked about it. And, I didn't know that much about it before trying to prep for this program. And I just think it's some really interesting information we want to kind of delve into. And then we'll get to our missionaries.
Right. So I see that it's nestled here between India and China.
Yeah. So it's completely landlocked. There's countries all around it. And some of the most amazing things I found out about Nepal was just its, now I can't think of the word, but the terrain.
Yeah.
It actually spans, I think it's like 7 different climate changes because of, as most people probably only know about Nepal, is that it has the Himalayas and specifically Mount Everest and all of the really high peaks, but it also has plains, and it has just small hills like you'd see here in Tennessee, and it has just a wide variety of terrain and climate. And so I think that's very interesting because I think most people just think of these tall mountains as just like people climbing up mountains all the time, but that's not the whole story to Nepal.
That's right.
It was kind of interesting to find out more information about that.
Okay.
But just talking about Nepal, so it is primarily a Hindu country, and it was actually officially a Hindu nation for hundreds of years. And it wasn't until 2008 that they actually went from having a king in power to a democracy.
Wow.
And they tried actually in the 40s and 50s. There was kind of a rise of revolution, and they tried to move it over, but that was kind of squashed and went back to their normal way of government. But 2008, after seeing India change its government, they said, I think this will work, and so they officially became a democracy.
That's not very long ago.
No, so they're like a little baby country.
That's right.
I mean, really, they're trying a new way, and it's that's hard. And
it is
so
hard.
So up until then, they were very strict on what was happening, and especially when it came to religion, it was even more strict than it is now, and we would still consider it very strict.
Yeah.
But officially it's a religious free country. But they do have a law that passed. Let me see if I can say it correctly here. I'm not going to find it in my notes very quickly, but they basically did pass a law. They don't want people to actively convert other people. So you can get into legal trouble for trying to be a missionary of your faith. And so even though they're not going to, there's no, they can't come against you legally for just being a Christian or changing, not being Hindu, but at the same time, they don't want you to go out and proselytize anyone around you. And so it's a very tricky place, to be. And of course, any religion really, if that's what you truly believe, you want to share that with other people. And so it's a very hard,
it is
a hard climate to be in. for that reason.
Right, because it's open, but not open.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So they'll accept you for whatever you are, but at the same time, you can't
Yeah.
tell other people about it. So, but we have been able to open some Seventh Adventist churches there since they became a democracy. It is population-wise, it is one of the largest countries in the world, population versus area.
Right.
And I know, as you pointed out earlier, the picture doesn't show a lot of people. Obviously, if it was a picture of India, there'd be no space in the street.
Yeah.
But it is very crowded. There are a lot of people, and so it's a lot of. I think at this point there's still about 81% that are Hindu, and so far just 1.4% that consider themselves Christian. And that's not. That's any Christian. That's not just Adventist. So I'm much smaller amount than that would be Adventist at this point.
So I would assume that because of Mount Everest and the Himalayas, that reduces the amount of livable space in the country.
Right.
And so the number of people would be more concentrated into the places that would be better suited for life and living. So
yeah. So they have a wide variety, a lot like what we've talked about in India, where there are some villages that are literally on the side of a mountain. So they have the same thing there, just because of the terrain they have. But you're right, it does limit, because there's you can only go up so far in elevation, and then you really can't have a village. So there is quite a bit of area covered with just these tall mountains that they can't occupy, for sure. So it does change the sizes of their cities and stuff. Kathmandu, their capital, is by far the largest city, and most of the other area, a large percentage, is just smaller villages here and there, not a whole lot of big cities. But it's just interesting learning more about them and just seeing what kind of place they are. And when it did technically become an open country, there were, I'm sure, a lot of people who were thinking, oh, how can we spread God's word there? How can we do this better? It should be a little bit easier. And so specifically, there was this couple, we'll call them Mary and Joseph. And they just had a burden for Nepal and for wanting to help. And so when they looked at the country, one of the things that stands out, as it does in most areas, are the children.
Right.
And so they thought, okay, how can we, if you're going to reach a country, do it through the children. And so they just had a burden on their heart for trying to do something there. So they have been there, I believe, approximately 7 years that they've been in Nepal and working. And so at the beginning, it was a lot of just learning the language, assimilating themselves into the culture, and then working with, as the Adventist churches kind of built up, working with the church to try and figure out the best way of reaching the kids. So for the first few years, it was all just about learning the language and translating material into that language so that it can be shared and used in the churches. Because again, they can't hold these big meetings. They can't have, a ton of outreach. But if they have the right material in the church, then if someone chooses to come in, they have an excellent way of reaching them. So that's kind of what they were trying to do, is make it so that the churches had the right tools to reach people as they come in the door. So,
and if someone's wondering why the church doesn't already have that, it goes back to being a new country that makes it a little bit more open for the churches, A, to come out if they were there, and B, for the few that do come in, they're brand new.
Oh yeah, exactly. So it's all relatively new. I mean, this is uncharted territory in many ways, and the Adventist Church in general, we do a lot of wonderful things in many, many countries, and I think some would even say that we are in every country of the world, but at the same time, we don't always have material in their native language. And even though we are trying to reach them, things are not, there's very few material things in the language of the people. So it's, if they understand English, great, but that's a huge work that still needs to be done, is to translate information. And so that's really a big part of it.
Right.
So they, Mary and Joseph, found some material that they felt would work really well to translate and use. And so they actually found My Bible First lessons. Mm-hmm. And so for those who aren't familiar with that, My Bible First is a small printing company, and they produce Sabbath school lessons for children from cradle age up to youth or young adult. Mm-hmm. And it's not against what the Adventist Church puts out. It's just a different option. They put the lessons together a little bit differently, and just make it a little bit of a different feel than the other lessons. And it was a little bit, I think that's why it made it a little bit easier for them to use, because it goes through things chronologically, so as you're going through the lesson, you're basically starting at Genesis, and you're just going all the way through the Bible, and learning, as much as you can that way. So instead of kind of skipping around, which some of the other Adventist materials tend to do, because they want to talk about Jesus' birth at Christmas,
Right.
So, which is perfectly fine. But when you're talking to someone who's never heard the name Jesus before, you want to really, you got to start at the beginning.
Yeah.
So, so they're using this material, and they took years to translate.
It would take a lot of time.
It takes a lot of time. And so this material, for instance, has a 3-year cycle. So it takes 3 full years, or 12 quarters, to go through the whole set. And so they're still working on, they're trying to keep up to where the churches there are at, what level they're at, and make sure it's translated correctly. But they were just about, so they worked with the churches, they worked with the teachers there to help them know how to present these lessons in the best way to make sure that people are really learning about Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so after a few years of doing the translation work, then they're working with, with the teachers, and they had just gotten to the point at the beginning of last year where they had pretty much gotten the materials into all of the established churches, and they really wanted to then work on the new churches, or those who were just too new to actually understand the information. So they were about to go into that phase of the program, getting out to those outlying churches, and then lockdown. Right. As we're still talking about, this is still a big thing. So, at first, like many projects and missionaries, they thought, what do we do now? Like, we're completely halted. What are we supposed to do?
Right.
And I'm sure that they prayed just as hard as some of us have prayed. Right. Like, what now? Yeah. What are we supposed to do?
So I want to just pop in case somebody is wondering why they would have to go to the churches. Mm-hmm. So with this material, it would be new for them.
Yes.
They would not know how to use the felts, like what we take for granted for those who have grown up in the Adventist church system. Mm-hmm. We know that there are felts that accompany different lessons, and they don't. Right. And so this was so new that they actually had to train trainers.
Yes.
The people that you're going to talk about are the trainers that were going out to the churches, to the Sabbath school leaders, to say, here's the material, here's the premise of it, and here's how you teach it, and here's how you So this is how basic it needed to be, because everyone was so new to all of this. So it's been a huge undertaking for Mary and Joseph to do this.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that out, because it is, I talk about, they were training, and in my mind, I'm like, I know exactly what that means. But they had to, you have to remember, this country is basically a Hindu country. Right. So, in Hindu religion and that form of worship, there's no okay, kids, go to your Sabbath school class, or go,
Right.
it wouldn't be Sabbath school, but
Right.
go to your class and I'll go into the temple and do my
Right.
thing. That's not how that religion works. And
Yeah.
so the people who have converted, they're doing what they think is right, and it's a little bit easier on the adults to understand, oh, now I'm reading this instead of
Yeah.
this, but there's no system set up for the kids in that way.
Right.
They don't understand what that would, a children's program, what is that?
Yeah.
So you're right. So they had to go in and train and say, look, this is what works best for kids.
Yeah.
Let me give you some material that will work wonderful. This is how you present the material.
Right.
You can use these as props to show the,
Right. And
yeah,
this is a song that
exactly.
you can teach them
Right.
that goes along
Here's
with
a memory
it.
verse
Yes.
song. Here's
Yeah.
this. Yeah. I mean, from scratch, you're definitely
Right.
teaching them. So, yes, so they finally, the established churches, they kind of got that down. But, right, they were sending out trainers to the other churches to try and get them up to speed with this. So, when the lockdown hit and they thought, oh no, how are we going to do this?
Right.
Through prayer, they realized, I think that we could just video, maybe do a YouTube channel or something, and then these other churches could at least see this, and it would be a good
Right.
tutorial for them this
Right.
way. And again, that was a learning
Yes.
process. Some people might be perfectly comfortable sitting down in front of their computer and flipping on the camera and just record. Well, not everyone is comfortable doing that.
No.
And so it was it was a learning curve just to try and get a YouTube channel up and some videos recorded and figuring out how best it would work.
Right. The lighting and
Sure.
how to get it into the camera view.
Right.
So that you're not
you're
down
seeing
below
everything.
the camera.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you see a good, overview. So this picture here is just a clip from one of the videos that they have been able to post, showing how. So you can see they have the felt board, and so she's ready to really talk about.
It looks like
the
a
lesson.
nature. It looks like a nature
so
nugget.
They might be doing a little nature story to begin with.
Yeah.
So they had to do this whole learning curve on how to put this together. But God has really led, and just the fact that they are, Mary and Joseph have been there for so many years, I know that God is still leading and wanting that work to be done, and He's showed them ways to accomplish that without crossing the line legally for that government, and so yeah, it's just been great to hear about their work and see what's going on.
Right. So this is helpful for the churches who want to
Yes.
learn how to do the 3-year cycle of lessons. But I guarantee you there are people who are not Sabbath school teachers who are
absolutely.
watching these and learning about Christ as well, and they can do
Right.
that in the privacy of their own home with headphones on their with their
Yes.
phones, and nobody needs to know that they're attending an evangelistic series. So God moved this into a format that many more people could
Absolutely.
view.
Yeah, great point, because that's you can't really control who clicks on a YouTube channel
Right.
as easily as you can who is walking over here to this meeting that shouldn't be happening.
Right.
So it's a huge boost, because it definitely fulfills the need that they had immediately of just trying to, how do we train these other churches?
Right.
But that's a great way for anybody to click and, what is she talking about? And I am sure that God is leading people there when they're not even searching for that, and yet somehow it'll come up on their YouTube feed.
Yeah.
Suggested videos.
That's right.
So it's wonderful, and it'll be a great testimony. I'm sure when Mary and Joseph get to heaven and they're walking around and they're like, I'm here because I saw your video, and they're gonna be like, what? I don't know who you are, but it'll be a wonderful testimony for them. So
absolutely.
I think that'll be great.
I think that's great. If you are interested in supporting Mary and Joseph in the work that they're doing, Hannah's going to drop our email link down below, and you can just send us an email, and then we can connect you with the best way to get that donation, because we want to make sure that we protect Mary and Joseph's identity and the
Yeah.
work that they're doing. We don't want to do anything to hinder what God is doing. So we're not posting links to their donation page like we normally would. So just go ahead and email us, and we'll make sure that we connect back with you, and we'll take care of getting that donation if that's something that you would like to do. Well, thank you for sharing the story of Mary and Joseph, who have spent many years of
Yes.
devoted work trying to get 12 quarters worth
Yeah.
of lessons
Yeah.
translated, and the training and all of that. They really have a heart for the people of Nepal, so I really appreciate you sharing it. And if you're interested in learning more about Jesus for Asia and the other projects that we have, I invite you to go to our website at jesusforasia.org, and there you will see our more than 60 projects. And while you're there, I invite you to pray for the projects that resonate with you, or with any other project that you see, because we know that prayer works. We know that Mary and Joseph prayed, Lord, how are we going to continue working with the shutdowns?
Yeah.
And God gave them an answer.
Yeah.
And now it's a bigger blessing to many more people. So your prayers are coveted for the projects that we have. So thank you for doing that. If you are watching this on YouTube, I invite you to subscribe to our page. If you're watching this on Facebook, I invite you to like our page. And that way you will get notifications of when we go live, because we would love to have you come back, because we get excited about sharing these stories, and we want to make sure that you have the pleasure of hearing what God is doing around the world. So thank you again for coming and for sharing about this project.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. This has been your Mission Snapshot.